iRacing.
Every season has its weeks where drivers circle it as a highlight. Sometimes it's their strongest track. Sometimes it's a local home track. In the case of this week, it's a lesser-known road course version of a large, well-known oval track, Pocono. That's right, folks. Let's get ready to watch round 5 of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legends Series. You'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Yadbury, and with me in the booth today is Joseph Black. Behind the scenes is our director, Christian Deploy, and he is using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Let's head over to our GSRC track guide to learn a bit more about what's inside this tricky triangle.
Welcome to Pocono Raceway. Located just 2 hours north of Philadelphia, the Tricky Triangle has been exciting race fans for over 50 years. While the oval circuit is by far more famous, there's some interesting road courses available in 4 different layouts. They range from 1 to 2.5 miles in length, with 7 to 13 corners to tackle. While they all contain at least a portion of the oval itself to help build up speed, they also all have tight, narrow technical infield sequences. Second gear hairpins and difficult braking zones are generously scattered about to help keep drivers on their toes. The international layout is the longest and quickest, using 2 full corners from the oval itself. But the entry to turn 1 there is wickedly hard to both spot and nail correctly in any car. The south layout is the shortest, but not the slowest of them, and only has 2 or 3 genuinely slow corners. The north circuit is probably the simplest and gives very few good places to execute a pass. Finally, the east layout is both the only one that lacks any of the oval corners and is made up of the most turns overall. Deceptively fun, it unfortunately forces you to make use of very little width if you want to go racing side by side. All in all, while it may be better suited to club-style racing, there's a nice variety of options to choose from. No doubt fans will have plenty to enjoy at the Tricky Triangle's tricky road courses.
Well, Joseph, people know the Tricky Triangle version, but the road course a little bit lesser known.
It certainly is, just that little bit, and we are running it in the opposite direction to the one you'd normally expect the triangle to be running. Just a touch over 4 kilometers, 10 corners around this circuit, and you can see most of them bunched up where that first, or what would have been the last, corner would have been. So those chicanes, they are very flat. They are going to be very interesting to watch the drivers heading through, especially as they're the first few corners.
It's going to provide some excitement for sure. That is one thing we can guarantee on. And let's go ahead and take a look at the championship standings right now. We've got 2 different championship standings, the F1 drivers and also the F2 drivers. Right now in that F1 driver championship, it is Andreas Valenteus, a healthy 46 points above Nikola Gaki there in second place. Toko Hassad, a very familiar former champion, sitting in third place. Those 3 are relatively grouped together. Then a little bit of a gap back to Mick Claridge, but look at that, only 3 points separating Mick Claridge from the world's biggest mover. Jason Clapper always starting at the back and charging his way up towards the front. Rolly Wallbank, Gary Ho, David Rossi, Kurt Clapper, and John Olson all inside of the top 10. But Joseph, we also have those F2 driver standings.
We certainly do. Valenteus with a strong lead at the top of the F1, and Josephine Becker, their lead is going to be a little bit smaller over Tobias Humvee. It's only 38 points. Mats Linden sits in that third spot, 55 points off of Becker, and the last driver in the triple figures. Yannis Carpentier is in 4th spot, 70 points off the lead, and Manuel Matasic is going to be 8 points off of Jan. Donald Peake finds himself in 6th place, just 1 point ahead of David Andres Tovar and Campbell Wallace. Tomasz Tuba and Andres Bruno round out the top 10 in the F2 standings.
It's our Drivers' Championship, and we also have our standings for the Nations Cup. Right now it is Ukraine leading 46 points over Italy, and then you see things really start to tighten up. 2 points separating second and third between Italy and Spain. Japan sitting there in 4th, England in 5th. The good old USA sitting here in 6th, Germany in 7th, UK in 8th, Hong Kong in 9th. And then in 10th is Sao Tome and Principe back here. And that is going to cover all of our points standings. Then I believe we also have our race details, Joseph.
Yes, we do. Almost halfway through the season now, 5 rounds through, or we will be after this race. Of our 12 rounds, 24 laps around the Pocono Raceway here today. Open setups and no spare car. If you get 17Xs, you get to drive through. 25X, that's a disqualification, and that'll be seeing you out of the round.
It seems simple enough, but it always is a challenge. Right now, the drivers are in qualifying. They basically have a handful of minutes and up to 2 laps to go out there and put in their qualifying effort to set today's starting grid, getting some of the actions of everything that's going on the racetrack right here. That was turn number 5, which leads you out onto the oval here, also known as oval turn number 2. We're going backwards on the oval today, so if you think Pocono and the tricky triangle running it counterclockwise like we typically see the NASCAR events, well, flip it around. We're going to be running this thing in the standard clockwise direction. Here's this little silly 789 chicane, and then accelerate their way out onto this oval here. Here's Andreas Valenteus. Now, Joseph, this is a little bit of an interesting line here. He was way up top entering turn number 1. I wonder if he was just trying to carry as much momentum as possible to go ahead and start this qualifying lap.
I'd imagine that is the reason, and he's going to be looking to challenge right up the very top. Valenteus has been incredible so far this season, which is why he has such a lead at the top of the F1 driver standings. You can see as he heads through the first sector, just what it takes to be good here around this circuit. Henry Morse, 23.558, the man at the top of the standings at the moment, and it's just all about trying to keep tight to the apex in that first little segment, the first few corners on at the circuit. And the first few corners are going to be the biggest challenge that they will face here today. Then after that chicane, it's going to get a little bit more simple. It's a little bit more traditional of watching a race at Pocono. It's going to be pretty much a straightaway, and then you do have that chicane that cuts it up, slows those cars down just a little bit, and it's going to be a prime overtaking opportunity for anybody in the slipstream. And then you'll be coming out towards the end and towards the final corner. And Togo Hisada at the moment the quickest, with just under 3 minutes left in the session. Yannis Carpentier is coming through the final corner now, and he will have the power down, and he will see whether he can beat his lap time currently of a 25.8 and move his way up from 17th place. Has he managed to do that? We will see as he crosses the line, and indeed he does, a 24.6, which is going to promote him up the order to 11th.
Now we focus here on Kevin Verbruggen. He has found his way out onto the front straightaway. He's currently sitting inside the top 5 with his first lap. Going to go ahead and see if that second lap is any better, which it is. It puts him up onto the front row right now. So Kevin Verbruggen with a 123.22 slots him into second place. Now this number 1 car, Andreas Valenteus, he still has both laps to complete here. And look at the timer. We've got 2 minutes left in qualifying. These cars are doing about, call it about a 125 lap time. So as long as this blue and yellow number 1 car is able to reach that start-finish line by 125 remaining, he still can fit in that second lap. And it pretty much looks like he has timed this thing to perfection here. He's going to be coming out onto this front straightaway. And actually, you know what? I take that back. He is just out onto this second straightaway, so he's approaching turn 7, 8, and 9 right now. He is not going to be getting in a second lap. It is going to come down to a 1-lap shootout here for this number 1 car.
Certainly is on the top line, as we mentioned before, and just trying to close himself down to the apex of the corner to carry as much speed as he can, as much momentum as he can, without braking much at all. Down the main straight, then this is the opportunity for Audrius Valenteus. He's not going to get another one with just over a minute left in the session. Valenteus then is going to get a 23 dead on, and that is going to be the lap time that sees him up to the top. He only had one lap. He only needed one lap, and it's now down to all of the challengers. I don't think Togo Hisada is going to be able to improve on that lap time that's just under a tenth back. So it's over to the likes of Verbruggen, Tokoki, to see if they can beat Valenteus.
What a lap from that number 1 car, but I can't say that I'm too surprised. Anytime you see that name, Audrius Valenteus, in your session, you're going to have to wonder how fast he's going to go as we watch this other car here round out through our qualifying session. Got a little bit wide there in that oval, but I think that's pretty much going to do it for nearly everybody, at least on track in terms of a qualifying lap time. There are a couple cars out there running. However, they've already put in their 2 lap times. So it does look like it will be Audrius Valenteus out front with that lap time of a 1:23.001. Togo Hisada right behind, only 7/100ths of a second, as we get our official starting grid here in just a few moments to allow everybody to line up on that front straightaway and get prepared for the green flag. It is the number 1 car, Valenteus out front, your pole sitter. Lined up next to him is going to be the number 3 car of Togo Hisada. In third place is going to be Kevin Verbruggen. Nicola Kaki in fourth, with Seb Tixier rounding out the top 5. Henry Moore sitting in 6th, with Gary Ho and David Rossi sharing row number 4 for 7th and 8th. John Olsen in 9th, and Jacob Reed rounds out your top 10.
Looking towards the 6th row of the grid, it's going to be Andre Castro and Jans Carpentier, and Kurt Clapper and Wade Sheedy lining up alongside each other on the 7th row. Javier Mosquera and Rowley Wallbank will occupy the 8th row, and then Pedro Temaladri and Robert Plumley on row 9, with Tobias Hornby and Henry Varamuki rounding out the top 20.
In 21st, we've got Michael Grissinger, followed by Manuel Matisic. And then in 23rd, we've got Jorge Gonzaga. Andres Bruno going to be sharing row number 12 with them. Jason Clapper starting way back here, the first of our non-qualifiers, in 25th, and the rest will be gridded by iRating. That includes Gary Quillen, Laust Olsen, Mats Linden, Troy Mortensen, Eagle Serban, and I believe one more, Jason Tyerman, back here in the number 31 car. So we've got 31 Lotus 49 cars gridded and are ready to take the green flag. It is a bit odd to see them pointed the wrong direction here on the start-finish straightaway at Pocono, but it is a relatively short run down into turn number 1. We've got the lights on, the revs are up, patiently waiting for Barney to drop that green flag, and we are racing here at Pocono. Audrius Valenteus gets a dead even jump with Togo Hisada, and you see him immediately jump down to the inside of turn number 1. Togo Hisada almost drives it off the racetrack on driver's left, but he's able to maintain it onto the racing line. It is Valenteus, Hisada, Verbruggen, exactly how they qualified. In fact, the top 5 is exactly how they qualified.
Managed to stay in exactly where they were at the start, although Valenteus, under a bit of pressure from Togo Hisada, he was able to ward him off. Wade Sheedy potentially looking for a move in this number 19 ahead, but can't quite open himself up yet for the opportunity. And so a little bit further up, there's a couple of scraps that look like they're building, that look like they might be heading to something, as I believe we had yellow flags out on the circuit momentarily. Not sure who that was for, but we'll be seeing towards the end as the bottom of the timing board will tick over to those who have not finished a race, who have already decided to call it quits. John Olsen here under pressure from Jacob Reed, who looks to the inside line of the next braking zone, but John Olsen just managing to hold on, and Jacob Reed actually running just that little bit wide and been overtaken by Carpentier on the high line, and they will remain in battle as they head down towards the straightaway and down towards the first corner. But looking back here, this is Kurt Clapper, this is Rossi, and this is Mosquera. They will be 3 wide into the final and down towards the straightaway once again. In behind them as well, Sheedy is going to pick up the slipstream of the car in the middle, and it's all down to who has set their cars up perfectly. And it's not going to be the car in the middle. It's not going to be David Rossi. He's going to be squeezed out because of that straight line speed. That's a car parked off of the circuits. And unfortunate for them, that's another car going very wide out of the first corner. And that is going to be Wade Sheedy. He drops down. There's contact with Robert Plumley involved. And that is going to send another driver to the back of the field. Henry Morse, the car to DNF on lap 1. Everybody else has so far made it cleanly, although that's another car off of the circuit. So mistakes being made here in the first sector at Pocono. And, well, some of these drivers, I think, need to settle into the race a bit more now.
Yeah, already halfway through, call it lap number 2 now. And Robert Plumley has done a terrific job to jump up 3 positions. You see Gary Ho in that purple number 9 car was one of these cars that's actually slipped back just a touch from where he initially qualified. So I have a feeling that number 9 car maybe had a mistake either late in the first lap or early in the second lap. We typically see Gary Ho up inside the top number, call it top 10 really, usually inside the top 7. As we jump back to our leaders out here, completing what is lap number 2 on the racetrack. Andreas Valenteus with a nice, healthy, call it half-second lead over Togo Hisada. And then you see Kevin Verbruggen sitting there in 3rd place. Nicola Kaki starting to put some pressure on that 3rd place as well in that lime green helmet of his. But it really is a top 4 breakaway. Seb Tixier trying to hang on as the caboose on the back of the train here in 5th place. You see him have a big-time wiggle there in some of these opening S sections. But this racetrack, as we kind of develop into this race, really kind of has 2 faces. We've got the infield section, which is more slow speed, right? It's not even medium speed through here. I would consider it very much a slow speed section. And then we accelerate out onto this oval, but the oval corners, no big deal. They're flat out. It's these brake zones going to turn 7, 8, and 9. This little chicane up here, I think that's the biggest variable that we've got today.
Yeah, and you're going to have to brake so very early into these zones because of how quickly you're going to be going. That goes for the chicane and for the first corner as well. You have to brake so very early just to get yourself set up out of the corner. And when you're thinking about somebody ahead as well, it can make for a very, very difficult braking zone. And that's why all of these drivers would have practiced. That's where all of these drivers would have practiced, as Cocky down the main straight is going to get the momentum and may well pull alongside Kevin Verbruggen. Where does he go? Does he decide on a line? Yes, he does. It's the inside, as Verbruggen tried to tempt him to go around the long way. But Cocky decided on the inside. The fastest lap went his way, so he is the quickest man out on circuit at the moment. And the inside line is going to benefit him in getting through on Verbruggen, as Tixier goes very wide in the background and goes onto the grass, loses momentum, and therefore might have missed an opportunity to get through on Kevin Verbruggen, but opens on opportunity for Reed in behind him to come through and overtake Tixier here, one of the drivers who uses one of those VR headsets, so getting the full feel of that moment in the grass at this point in time, and just trying to, you know, get the feel for this circuit once again and get the feel for the pacey part that we know is just about to come up.
Turn number 1, where that move was made, such a long right-hander. I'll try to draw some parallels, and a lot of people know it, especially on iRacing. They're familiar with Lime Rock Park, right? Up there in the northeastern region of the U.S. Actually not too far from Pocono. As I was just watching on my screen, I think it was maybe Seb Tixier that just had a huge moment in the chicane, almost collected our top 5, but thankfully was able to get it back onto the racetrack. But I was going to say, turn number 1 here, this version that we're running at Pocono, I can definitely draw parallels to Lime Rock, turn number 1 and 2, Big Bend. Oh, this is a challenge for the lead, but this is what I'm talking about. Watch Valenteus. He's got the inside, and if you're on the outside here in turn number 1, look at how long it is, right? There's the second apex right there. So if you're stuck on the outside of turn number 1, I just don't see you being able to hang tough on the outside. If you're trying to get the pass done, the inside of the racetrack is where you want to be.
That's why Nicola Koki didn't take the line that Verbruggen was tempting him to. That's exactly why Verbruggen tempted him to that line in the first place. He wanted Koki to go through on the outside line. Verbruggen, though, wanted to hold that inside line. They both and tried to scrap it out for it. And in the end, it was the man who headed to the inside as Verbruggen didn't feel as though he was going to be able to hold that inside line and move across much more to make a fair defence on Nicola Kaki, who is now up into that third spot. Valenteus at the moment is just weighing up his options, and Toga Hisada is weighing up his options as well. There'll be very, very different ideas and ideologies, and it's going to be the difference between the defending and the overtaking, because you really, really have to think so much about being in the lead. When you're trying to overtake, it's a little bit more simple. It's just about when and where you can find your opportunities, and then you can try and blast through. Hisada 2 tenths back as they head down the main straight. Corky is 7 tenths back on Hisada, so won't be putting any pressure on him this lap. Hisada now down to a tenth behind, but braking for that first corner is not going to be close enough to Valenteus, and has therefore to be forced to remain in behind into the first braking zone. They are braking so early for that line, and well, they're making it in the end. Hisada trying to make his way through on Valenteus at some point soon, as we're going to get a race replay here, and we're going to see what has happened. This is a little bit further down the order. The number 15 Jorge Gonzaga is involved, and that is the black and gold livery that we've got there, as well, the trees are going to obscure our vision, but it's not going to obscure our vision of that much. Gonzaga spinning off of the circuit, and the car behind just managing to avoid those two, though, is well, I think they've seen Gonzaga panicked and just shot on
Joseph, I think that was one of those Mario Kart moments. It wasn't just one banana peel down there. It was the whole lot of banana peels down there in that chicane section, with everybody spinning around. And this is that exact section. You can see how much these drivers are really kind of having to tiptoe their way through there and on the limit of grip. But that was an amusing replay. But what is even more amusing is Togo Hisada's hunt for the lead. The last few laps, he's really challenged down the front straightaway, but he is as close as he's ever been. He's now up alongside of our leader going down the front straightaway. Can he clear him? Valenteus crazy deep on the brakes into turn number 1. Can he still balance the car and keep it on the racetrack? A little bit wide right there in the middle, and then brings it perfectly down to that second apex. Wonderfully defended from that number 1 car. So even if you've got, call it half a car length on Valenteus, but he's got the inside line, you better expect him to go crazy deep on the brakes.
You certainly are. The move is going to be bold, but it's going to be able to speed you up out of the corner, as you're just not going to get in the dirty air, which around the first sector is so difficult. Hisada trying to take wide lines, alternate lines, to try and open up an opportunity on Valenteus, or maybe to try and defend from the man in behind, who seems to be closing more and more, Nicola Corky. And at the moment, Corky remaining in that third spot, not feeling as though he's got enough pace to catch up. I was worried for this pack about Jacob Reed. He was very quick on the start, but his pace seems to have tapered off at this point, as this top 4 have been so unbelievably quick. It's a testament to their pace that the man in 4th place, and the man who remained in 4th place throughout the entirety of his lap that was the fastest of all, were, well, he was able to set the fastest lap. He was able to be the quickest on the circuit, but still not make his way past these top 3. They'll head on, they'll cross the beam for the 8th time in this race, and we will get another replay of a little bit of on-track action, maybe not, from this little group. It is going to be Seb Tixier, and we will see what happened to the Frenchman, as, well, he ran down towards the braking zone. I believe this is the chicane, indeed it is, and he's just had to cross it, getting very close to the back of one of the cars in the leading pack. And, well, can Jacob Reed make his way through nice and cleanly on him? Yes, he can. And Tixier, awareness was a little bit better than I would have been expecting there, and he was able to avoid Reed.
Yeah, Seb Tixier, always one of our most decorated competitors out here. Typically runs at the front of these races. Takes it a little bit more of a relaxing approach these days. So usually you see him hanging out inside the top 5, but I always thought one of Seb's strengths was how strong he is on that brake pedal pressure. Now, obviously, he went a little bit too deep here at those opening laps, and we saw him kind of fly off the racetrack, but he has recovered and sitting back there in 6th place, so only lost that 1 spot to Jacob Reed. And like we heard Joseph saying, I was actually expecting a little bit more out of Jacob Reed today. I know that his qualifying wasn't probably as good as what he wanted, so the track position wasn't necessarily there to start this race, but he did have the fastest lap not too long ago, just wasn't able to close in on the track position and is now actually grown out to about 3.5 seconds. Is Togo Asada gonna challenge the lead, but that's gonna be off the racetrack. I was gonna mention that is a dangerous move from what we've seen in turn number 1, and Togo Asada slips from second back to 4th place.
And I think slips is the right terminology to use here, as he just had a little bit of a grip problem off of the racing line, and that's why he's dropped down so far, just trying to save the car and not lose too much time. But in the end, Togo Asada, the one proper opportunity that he's had for an overtake has not paid off, and he drops to 4th. This opens up the opportunity for Nicola Cocchi to make his way through, as that's going to be Jason Clapper off of the circuit, and he's able to get back on in the end, I think, because he's going to have to wait for everybody to drive past. And that is one of the most gutting feelings, when you have to wait for everybody to go through before you can make your way back on and you really have a chance to reflect on your mistake. Back up to this top 4 battle. Nicola Cocchi is right in behind Valenteus as we get a race replay in your top right. Picture-in-picture of Michael Grissinger. What has happened to the man who was 2030? Sent it on the inside, and he's gone over the top of the car in front, and that is not necessarily the cleanest move, I think it's fair to say.
No, probably not. I think that was the 13 of Gary Quellen that he was rock climbing up the side of, so probably one that they'll try to forget as we focus our sights towards our race lead. One thing has stayed the same. Andreas Valenteus is an immovable rock up front. Last lap time, a 1:23.7. It's actually about 0.4 off of his best. And get the replay of what happened to Jason Clapper. You saw me kind of react to that one. He hits that outside access road, and that's really what upsets the car. Now, obviously, he was way wide and in the grass beforehand, but I thought he had actually caught the slide. It was just that big old bump that threw him around. So, unfortunate day for our biggest mover so far. Jason Clapper was up plus 12. Now he has slipped back. Our biggest mover is going to be Laust Olsen, back in 14th for the number 14 cars. We continue to watch up front. So it was Togo Asada applying the pressure to Andreas Valenteus. Oh, this is going to be tricky. We've got a lap car. Valenteus makes contact. I wonder if he's got damage to the front end of that machine. Nicola Cocchi was able to take avoiding action. Same thing with Kevin Verbruggen, but our leader approached that chicane at full speed, and there was a lapped car that had just spun himself around. Wow, I don't see any damage. I'm not sure how that happened.
Yeah, that was a huge shame for those behind who were trying to chase and now have had their momentum broken. Valenteus somehow managing to avoid damage, and it looks as though Jacob Reed has actually, in the end, managed to get himself up into the fight. He's currently ahead of Togo Asada in 4th spot, and Verbruggen and Cocchi have had their 1 second gaps of the car in front broken. That is going to be incredibly difficult momentum to rebuild as we head on to the halfway point of this race. It was going to be down to one mistake, one problem for one of these drivers to see them down, and well, Togo Asada, he made a mistake a couple of laps ago which dropped him down to 5th place. Now everybody else in that pack has had a scare of their own. That's going to sharpen up their senses. That's going to really scare them into properly focusing on the last 13 laps. So I think we're going to be getting absolutely rip-roaring racing for the last few laps of this race, as we're going to get a replay of what has happened on the circuit, and that is going to be the incident that we saw a bit earlier, I think, as Togo Asada watching on board with the Japanese driver. What are we going to be able to see as they headed down the straight and into the chicane? It's going to be, the lap car just spinning at the wrong moment, and that is going to be a huge shunt, and actually that shunt pushing that car out of the way for everybody else to get through. A blessing in disguise then for Asada, Verbruggen and Cocchi.
Yeah, now Togo is going to be making a move down to the inside of the number 2 car into turn number 1. Jacob Reed is not even going to fight it, and you were saying a blessing in disguise. I think it really helped out that number 2 car of Jacob Reed. We were mentioning him a little bit earlier in the race. Didn't have necessarily the best qualifying effort, but has done a nice job to kind of just hang out and do laps, and because of others' misfortune, has promoted himself right here into this lead battle. I think that Valenteus a couple laps ago going into that chicane was probably screaming, jumping up and down in his sim, saying, no, get out of the way, but it actually worked out for the better for him. he was getting some extreme pressure on that gearbox, and now he's got a 1.2 second gap between himself and Nikola Kaki as we check back in here with Gary Ho, who has recovered back up to 11th place. I was noticing these first couple opening laps for Gary Ho in this bright purple number 9 car were a little bit rough. Slipped back a handful of positions. I think I saw him like down 8 or so, maybe even down 10. So he's done a terrific job to recover from there. Had a couple big slides throughout the infield, but seems to have gotten the rhythm of things as Jacob Reed, I think, is just going to try to hang on to the back of Togo Hisada here today.
Don't blame him at all, because it's just now about trying to watch for mistakes. There has been a mistake from Togo Hisada earlier on, and Jacob Reed hoping to pressure, hoping to cause another one here as they head through the first sector for the 13th time. He may well open up an opportunity for himself some point soon, because he is looking very, very quick. A race replay in the top right corner of your screens, and that's going to be Henry Varamurki going very, very wide. And he's going, actually, he wasn't the car going wide, he was the car that span and, well, caused a little bit of an incident with the car in behind. That's a disappointing one then for him. And, well, at the moment, he currently sits in the pits and he may well be out of the race. He would become another retirement in the list. Serban, Woolbank and Castro are part of that list. And, of course, we know that we saw Henry Morse in the pits earlier on. And this is Henry Morse. He has made his way back into the race and he's trying to make his way back into contention for something pretty decent. Maybe a top 10 finish is what he's challenging for. And he has gone through at the moment and has made his way up to P18. So it's the start of a comeback, I think. And the pace he's showing so far isn't too bad, of course. He ended up last place. He ended up 30th on the field, but up to 18th spot, still 11 or so laps to go. It's his opportunity as Jacob Reed takes the high line on Togo Hisada and may well get through purely on momentum as they cross the beam for the 14th time. Hisada, though, holding that inside line. He's seen fights into the first corner before. He's been in one himself, and that experience has allowed him to stay ahead.
Yeah, he really kind of parked it at the middle of the corner because he charged that first apex to make sure that he was able to be clear of this green number 2 car going into that middle. So that way Togo Hisada is able to hang on to that 3rd place. But I can report that ever since we had a little bit of, call it a hiccup going into that back straightaway chicane, something has changed up front. Valenteus was on the back foot this entire race, right? He was challenged from Togo Hisada. He was challenged from Nikola Kaki. He had to get around the lapped car and had about 5 competitors directly behind him. But ever since that moment, he has just grabbed another gear. The last lap time of 123.4 out of our leader. Fastest lap out of anybody on the racetrack. So he has definitely got a move on out there. He has got the memo that says, all right, everybody's going to be using that slipstream behind. They're going to be coming for you in the lead, and he has now grown it out to 2.1 seconds as we get these great picture-in-picture shots live from Henry Morse up in that upper right. And then we've got the battle between Jacob Reed and Togo Hisada. Just kind of from being a racer and seeing the posture from this number 2 car, I really don't think that Jacob Reed is trying to pass Togo Hisada. I do think that Togo might be a little bit on the defense because he sees Jacob Reed as a competitor, right? And he's always one of the fastest competitors, and he always has to race him for those race wins. But I just think that Jacob Reed is happy hanging out inside the top 5 here today. Might not be his strongest racetrack, and you can definitely see these other cars have stronger areas than this green number 2 car. I just think that Reed is hanging out today.
And he's just, I think he's pretty happy to be up in the top 5, all things considered. I think he's pretty happy to be in the slipstream of Togo Hisada, all things considered, considering he was far off at the start of this race. And of course, that issue earlier on for all of the top 4 allowed him to come straight back into the battle here and just allowed him to take home what looks like it may well be a top 5. 10 laps to go then, and Jacob Reed on the lower line and Togo Hisada on the higher one, cutting down to the low line. 2 different strategies then and not sure which one is the better one. On the one hand, Togo Hisada able to pick up the momentum of the top line and just keep going through. Jacob Reed, though, is just trying to give himself the opportunity on the lower line to maybe pick it up into the first corner. Was that a little bit of a lift there down the end of the straight for Jacob Reed? Maybe a little bit of fuel saving.
I don't think it's fuel saving. I think it's just what I was pointing at. I don't think he's trying to pass Togo Hisada at all. I think he realized that he's actually faster if he follows this white and red number 3 car. Togo's got a little bit more pace inside the vehicle, so I think he's not trying to challenge Hisada going into these corners, because if they do fight side by side, we all know what it does. It just slows everybody down. So if he is not a threat in the mirror to that number 3 car, they both can go faster. And who knows? It is only 1.7 seconds up the road to Kevin Verbruggen. Got about 8.5 laps remaining. Got a lot of lap traffic on the horizon. So it's not crazy to think that these two can hunt down what is second place out there.
No, it certainly isn't, and they've managed to gain half a second in that first little chicane segment. So they are certainly gaining on those cars just ahead, but I'm not sure how much Nicola Corky and Kevin Verbruggen are gaining on Valenteus, whose pace so far this season has just been absolutely exemplary, and this looks like another demonstration of the Ukrainians' abilities. Jacob Reed on the outside, but again, I don't think he's going to be looking to go through, and again, he has lifted it off down the main straight. Verbruggen still, I think he's going to be looking on a move on Corky more than Reed's looking for a move on Hisada, because they are losing time to the cars ahead. While Hisada and Reed are gaining on Verbruggen, these two are losing maybe about 5 or 6 tenths a lap on Valenteus.
Yeah, that's spot on. And in fact, that last lap, they lost almost 1 second. That's because they kind of tripped over some lap traffic. So what was about 2.2 seconds, now about 3.4, maybe even 3.5 seconds. The gap between first and second place, with 8 laps remaining here at Pocono Raceway, racing the infield road course, utilizing some of this outer tricky triangle here. It has been Andreas Valenteus, your pole sitter, who has led every single lap so far. Togo Hisada managed to give him a good challenge earlier in the race, but unfortunately ran wide in turn number 1 and kind of lost a couple spots. Ever since then, he's been playing catch-up. He's currently sitting in 4th place, trying to eliminate what is a 1.5 second gap to this driver that we're riding on board with right here. This is Kevin Verbruggen, who has been applying the pressure to the back of Nicola Corky. But Joseph, like you said, you were spot on. Valenteus is taking control. It's kind of the 2 packs of 2. And I do feel that Togo and Jacob are closing in on this battle between Nicola and Corky, and especially because they're running into lap traffic.
And that's going to be a deciding factor, I think, in this race, where can they get through nice and cleanly and quickly on this lap traffic. Their record with lap traffic so far, well, it was that one car where they ended up, well, the first driver in the pack at least ended up hitting them into the chicane. So it's not necessarily the best track record, but of course their track record on iRacing trumps all of that, and it is so good. 7 to go, and as you say, they are catching up to lap traffic and will need to dispatch of them quickly. If Corky or Verbruggen have problems with lapped traffic maybe matching them and catching them in that first sector, then Hisada and Reed really have an opportunity to fight for a podium.
Working our way through that silly little back straightaway chicane as we check back in on Gary Ho, who has got a black flag, unfortunately. I wonder if Gary Ho hit incident limits out there and is going to have to come in and serve that drive-through penalty. So unfortunate here for this green number 9 cars. Looks like we got some bump drafting going down the front straightaway. This is Jacob Reed literally pushing the gearbox of Togo Hisada down the front straight, and I think that answers our question. Jacob Reed is not trying to pass Togo Hisada. They are trying to work together to get through this lap traffic, try to catch those competitors and end up on the podium.
Yes, he certainly is, I think, trying to allow them to push forward, trying to get these two further up the field at this point in time, because a podium is not too far away for either Hisada or Reed, or maybe even both. 6 to go then, and Corky and Verbruggen are going to remain in those second and third spots for now. Those are the two spots that these two will be chasing. Reed taking alternate lines out of the chicane and trying to come down the main straight with enough momentum to really push Hisada on. Maybe he's going to try a little bit of bump drafting. Of course, no front wings on these cars, so no fear of breaking that, but they are a little bit more they're a little bit more temperamental, these cars, I think it's fair to say, and well, they may well suffer damage regardless of whether they have that front wing or not. Of course, that front wing would increase that downforce, but without it, they are much quicker down the straight. We haven't had the opportunity, because of how good the fight up at the top has been, to really keep an eye on anybody else further down the field, and this is going to be the battle for 12th place. As up we go, Nicola Corky around the outside of Kevin Verbruggen. He's made pretty much a rinse and repeat of the Hisada mistake, and Verbruggen has gone through.
Yeah, Verbruggen up to second place. I know that Kevin's going to be very happy with that performance, and Nicola is going to be smacking himself for that little bit of a mistake in turn number 1. And yeah, you were pretty much 100% correct, just a little bit wide there, just like we saw Togo Hisada. Same mistake out of Nicola Cocky as Laust Olsen trying to make a move on what is David Rossi directly in front of him. Looks like that yellow number 14 car is going to take away 11th place, and he now sets his sights on those two in front of him. That is Javier Mosquera as well as Carpentier in that number 22. That's kind of the lead of this 4-pack right here. But I mentioned Laust Olsen. He is having a terrific run, Joseph. He is up 16 positions from where he started way back in 27th up to 11th.
Yeah, very, very good race from Laust Olsen. Of course, an incredibly quick driver, and he's demonstrated it here today. Maybe he likes this Pocono Legacy layout, and well, it's certainly an interesting way to take this circuit, and it has provided the racing I think we were hoping for, as Jacob Reed on the outside of Hisada. Hisada cuts him off into the first corner. I think now the communication is pretty much there. I think they both understand what both of them are doing, and they're trying to go forward and trying to catch up to Corky and to Verbruggen. They've remained in behind. It's been a similar gap for a while now. 1.6, 1.7. It goes down to 1.5. It jumps up to 2 seconds pretty much every single lap. So there hasn't been the outright pace there to catch up, but the pace has been to remain in the same slipstream. Laust Olsen then going for a move, it looks like, as Mosquera and Carpentier are going to be side by side. Olsen is actually the car watching in the background as the 12 and the 22 scrap it out on the circuit. The 22 has the inside line. The 12 tries to go around the long way, and this battle will remain all the way through the first 5 corners of this first sector. We're going to watch on board with Olsen as these two continue to scrap it out. Carpentier and Mosquera can barely be split as they head to the next braking zone, and they head out of it still locked in battle. Who is going to get the edge then? Is it going to be Carpentier on the outside line? Is it going to be Mosquera on the inside? Carpentier runs wide. There's a small mistake there, and that is going to cost him that fight and cost him the position to Rossi and Olsen as well.
Yeah, and it's actually going to be David Rossi, the red car, with a good run. He's going to look to the inside of Laust Olsen going down here into the chicane, but Laust really deep on the brakes, makes contact with the car in front. He loses a wheel. So unfortunate for the number 14 car. I think it was Javier Mosquera that he got into that has lost his left rear wheel. So what was such a great run for Laust Olsen ends in tears as our podium fight has gotten a little bit closer. Now, Joseph, I know that you had said that the pace hasn't been there for Togo and Jacob Reed to close it down, but the biggest difference is that's when Nicola Cocky was leading the second place. Now with Kevin Verbruggen, they're fighting side by side. What was 2 seconds between themselves and Togo Hisada is now down to slipstream ranges. Nicola Cocky is on the inside. Kevin Verbruggen actually got into the wall a little bit on the straightaway, so move that green helmet back into second place. But look who has joined the party. Togo Hisada and Jacob Reed. And oh my goodness, that was a mistake out front from Nicola Cocky. The slipstream is going to be incredibly strong from both Kevin Verbruggen and Togo Asada. Let's watch him go 3 wide as we go down the front straightaway here. Nikola Kaki on the back foot. Kevin Verbruggen already going to the inside. Here comes the double slipstream from Togo Asada. He backs out of it. He says, I've seen this before. Kevin Verbruggen going to hang on to the inside line. Nikola Kaki keeps it on the racetrack this time.
He certainly does, but he doesn't keep the position. Down to third place, and Togo Asada going quickest of any lap. Shows how hard all 4 of these drivers are pushing with just the 2 laps to go. Kevin Verbruggen in the lead of this battle, only due to mistakes from Nikola Kaki, I think, and mistakes were made in the battling in the first place because it allowed Asada and Reed into it, and we can watch very, very closely as Togo Asada gets very, very close to the back of Nikola Kaki, as there's a replay of your incident involving Javier Mosquera and Laust Olsen that saw Mosquera's wheel off and Laust Olsen's nose cone off, and they ended up out of this race, although Laust Olsen actually was able to keep going. I think there was a little bit of a visual damage that got very quickly repaired. Asada then in 4th spot, in the very, very thick of things, in behind Koki and Verbruggen, and Jacob Reed is going to wait to pounce on any opportunities as Valenteus is going to take us on to the final lap of this race, and every single spot on this podium, barring the winner, is still yet to be decided. In fact, it's second down to 5th that is still yet to be decided. Who is going to pick up the strongest slipstream down the main straight? Verbruggen's going to try and break it. Corky's going to try and follow him through. Togo Asada then just waiting in the wings, waiting in the background, both of Corky and Asada, knowing they want to take the inside line. Jacob Reed trying to go the long way, and that is the 3rd driver in this fight to make that mistake, and that surely sees the Briton out of podium contention.
It's just so inviting to take all of that racetrack. You say, I can lengthen my brake zone, I can really carry the speed, and then all of a sudden, once you get into the infield, that racetrack goes from about 30 car lengths wide down to about 2 car lengths wide. So you really have to keep it onto the racetrack, like we've seen so many competitors just drift a little bit wide and have that track position ruined as Andres Valenteus sees this final chicane for the very last time. We are on the last lap of today's race. He was your pole sitter with only 1 lap in qualifying. That's all he needed to put it up front with a 1:23.00. He holds the fastest lap of the race at a 1:23.1. He had some challenges at the beginning of the race, was able to fend off everybody who attempted to pass him. The number 1 collects another checkered flag. Winner at Pocono, Andreas Valenteus.
Very, very good drive from Valenteus, and Verbruggen and Corky are going to round out the podium in the end. Togo Asada so close in that 4th spot, and Jacob Reed in 5th. Seb Tixier is going to take home 6th place, and well, this is the fight for the 10th place, the final of those top 10 spots. Jason Clapper and Carpentier, who had the pace to fight earlier on further up, but of course made that mistake. And Jason Clapper now leads that little scrap for 10th spot as Olsen comes across the line in 7th, and Clapper, Kurt Clapper that is, will come across the line in 8th. Rossi will be 9th, and this may well be a drag race to the line if Carpentier can get the exit out of the final corner that he wanted. He's going to close in, but it's not going to be enough, and it's Clapper leading Carpentier. Tema Ladri is going to finish off in 12th spot, and Laust Olsen, after a very, very strong race, 1 mistake, marred his progress through the field, but he's going to end up in 13th, and Henry Morse, good recovery from him as well. He's going to be 14th. Quellin, Plumley, Sheedy, Hornby, Linden and Grissinger are going to round out the top 20. But today, of course, as pretty much every round this season so far, will be about that one man.
Valenteus burning it down after today's race. A rightful victory, and you know what? A hard-fought victory. It seemed like the last half of the race, he was a little bit on cruise control, but the front half of the race, he had plenty of challengers and was able to fend off everybody as we get a look at our official results on screen. It was Valenteus, a winning margin of nearly 7 seconds over Kevin Verbruggen in second. Nikola Kaki rounds out the podium in third. Thankfully, his off-track excursion didn't cost him that podium. Togo Asada definitely learned about turn number 1 today, slips down to 4th place, while a terrific run really from Jacob Reed, qualified way back in 10th, and then fought his way up to that main group up there, finishes inside the top 5. Seb Tixier with a little bit of a lockup early on, kind of separated himself. He finishes in 6th. John Olsen with a quiet run in 7th here today. Good finish. Kirk Clapper in 8th. David Rossi 9th. And then our biggest mover today, plus 15 on the day, that is Jason Clapper. And it would have been more if it wasn't for that early spin, but nice job to round out the top 10.
Yes, it was, and well, the rest of the field would be James Carpentier in 11th spots after his mistake. Pedro Telmeladri in 12th place. Laus Olsen and Henry Morse, I mentioned their mistakes, but they are 13th and 14th. And I don't know if Morse's was a mistake or whether he just accidentally took qualifying fuel, which would have been a mistake, but I meant a mistake in the race. Gary Quellin 15th and Robert Plumley 16th, with Wade Sheedy, Tobias Humvee, Mats Linden and Michael Grissinger round out the top 20.
Across the page in 21st, it's Andres Bruno back here, a lap down. Followed up with Gonzaga Matatisic in 23rd. Gary Ho slips back to 24th. Mortensen in 25th. And then comes the cars that had a little bit more issues. Jason Tyerman back here in 26th. Javier Mascara, we saw lose the rear wheel from that incident. Varamaki, Serban, Wallbank, and Castro were our 31 cars that took place here in today's race. It looks like we're getting a few of our competitors joining us here post-race. I think we're going to go ahead and start with Kevin Verbruggen, who finished in 2nd place here today. It was a little bit of a back and forth battle up front, had some lapped cars mixed in there, but you were in the thick of it for every single one of those 25 laps.
Yeah, I'm glad this race finally went a lot better than the previous races. Yeah, no, I don't know what happened there. In the other races, there were multiple times where I just missed some gears. So, yeah, I just cleaned all my stuff, did some recalibration, and hoped it would help. And hasn't happened since. And, yeah, an amazing race now with Nicola. I think it got started a bit because of an incident with a back marker earlier in the race, which spread us out a little bit. Because if Nicola was in the draft of Adrias, it would have been very hard to get any sort of run going on him. But no, lots of fun.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about. So it seemed like the entire top 5, call it top 6, was able to keep pace with Valenteus until you got separated. Was the draft that strong to really kind of keep you up attached to that gearbox, or was it just lapped cars and then once you got separated, it continued to separate?
Well, no, after we got separated, you could see that the top, well, apart from Adrias, who drove away in the front, we did all close up near the end of the race. So it was clear that, yeah, I'm not sure if it was just draft or also just people are a little bit mixed up on pace, but it was, yeah, a lot of fun.
And that definitely makes sense. My last question here for you, because this is a little bit of an oddball track. You know, if we race Pocono, we typically think of the oval. What did you think about this layout? Because it's very different.
It is very different than any other track we've driven, yeah. I must admit, the first time I drove here for practice, something just didn't really click for me, and I hated it. But over time, it started to grow a bit just because of its awkward nature, the awkward corners. It's really good for racing because you can just... Because the 2 places where you can really overtake are really wide, and then they go into very tight corners. You will see some crazy line differences there, but makes it very scary to go too wide because you know somewhere those lines are going to cross. But
Go ahead.
And therefore it was just a lot of fun to actually race the track, even though for hot lapping it is just miserable. Just you're bouncing everywhere, trying to find some grip anywhere. But yeah, great track in the end.
Well, I'm happy that you've become a fan of it after kind of having a little bit of a mixed opinion, and a 2nd place certainly helps things out. Thank you so much for coming out and racing with us. Anybody you want to give a shout out to?
I don't think I can give a shout out to anybody else than John Olsen and Javier Mosquera. I don't know if you saw in the livery, but they are the 2 who kept pushing to drive this track for once. And yeah, it was a great success.
Well, that was Kevin Verbruggen bringing the number 6 car home in what is second place here today at Pocono, and I think that Joseph has caught up with our third place finisher.
Yeah, hello Nicola, and well, it was a very, very good race, kept you on your toes throughout. I just wanted to, I just wanted to get your opinions. How do you think that race went from your perspective?
Hi guys. Yeah, I think it's gone well overall because I almost crashed twice in two back markers car, and one it was just an honest accident, but the other two were a little bit weird. You know, I've gone brake checked in in the middle of the back straights, and I've gone fight by some cars in the very slow section, which is very narrow. So I was, I almost crashed there as well, right when I needed to build a gap to Kevin. So it was very bad timing, and I'm just happy to got a podium because the grid again it was very, very strong. But yeah, I'm not very happy about the whole thing gone, because I think I could have stuck with Audrey's for the rest of the race.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, you certainly had very, very strong pace. There was, of course, that big moment in with the lapped car, but there was also a couple of moments with turn number 1, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on. Of course, we raced the wrong way around at Pocono, according to the traditional layouts. We raced also
Really
the little inside parts, and well, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that first sector in particular, that first corner where it looked very, very difficult to really pick the right line.
Yeah, it's very challenging, but I like when things got challenging. So the first turn, I think, is the best turn in the track, because it's very, very easy to go wide. You need to be trail braking so much. You have to be so precise on the brakes. If you just remove even a little of weight on the front tires, you are not going to make the corner. So you need to be super precise there, to be very specific on your braking points, on your line, on your inputs. You need to be perfect every time, and it's the best part of the track. And by the way, I wasn't even aware that we were driving backwards on the track, and never been there.
Well, always good to visit new tracks, and I'd suggest watching a few races at Pocono, maybe doing a few more yourself. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us today, and congrats on your podium.
Yeah, thanks. But I'm really bad in ovals racing, so I think I will pass anyway. And I want to give a shout to Septix here, because it ovaled this track, and I thought it was almost impossible to finish the race, and he did. And I want to also give a shout to my friend, and I want to her to know that I will bring her pizza in like 2 hours from now. Bye bye.
Thank you very much.
Well, that was Nicola Cocky out there finishing in third place, and that's going to do it for us here on today's broadcast of Grand Prix Lotus 49 cars at Pocono Raceway. Thanks to the team today. That includes Joseph, Christian, and Dougie. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. The next race for these Lotus 49s is going to be the Milwaukee Mile. That is next week, 1 week from today, October 25th at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And up next on the channel is the IMSA Vintage Series multi-class racing from Aragon. And that is at 1 p.m. Eastern. You see that we've got a bunch more stuff lined up later this week, including Porsche Owners Club and the Skip Barber Racing Series. And be sure to check out all of the other broadcasts, not just what we've got here on the screen, but what we've got over on the channel. Until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.